Omaganatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today, of course, many people call Diwali, but as some of you may know, the actual name of the day in Sanskrit is Deepavali or Deepa Malika. And this day is most important because what? Everyone puts out lots of lights and street food? No, this day is most important because it's the day when Mother Yashoda bound baby Krishna. So we're going to speak about that, especially since during the month of Kartik, we're singing about that Lila. Tonight we'll focus on the verse, the third verse, Iti Driksa Lila Bir Ananda Kunde. Swagosham Nimajantam Akyapayantam. Tadiyeshitagneshu Bhaktarji Tattvam Puna Prema Tastam Shata Vritti Vande. This pastime, Iti Drik, Iti refers to this special pastime that Krishna performs as Braj Lila in general, those Braj pastimes. And these are his personal inner stock of pastimes. More personal, more intimate, more confidential than his expansions that deal with the material universe like the Purusha avatars. More intimate and confidential than the Lila avatars, the pastime incarnations. This is very special. And these childhood pastimes especially are not seen even in Goloka Vrindavan. They're part of the special group of pastimes, childhood pastimes that Krishna displays in the material world, in his Boma Lila, his earthly manifest pastimes. So you have this special stock of Lila, this special stock of pastimes displayed in a special area, Vrindavan. And what is the result of that display of Krishna's personal inner stock, inner warehouse of pastimes displayed in that special confidential area? Iti Driksa Lila Be Ananda Kunde. Ananda Kund, he plunges the inhabitants of Braj into pools of liquid ecstasy. Because they know nothing but Krishna and Krishna's comfort and attachment to Krishna. All of Vrindavan exists simply to give pleasure to Krishna, to give comfort to Krishna. No matter whether you're human being, plant, tree, cow, buffalo, insect, bird, you're simply striving to give comfort to Krishna. And you're attached to Krishna. Everyone and everything in Vrindavan is attached to Krishna. Even the rivers, the sand on the bank of the rivers, the trees, the plants. So in his childhood pastimes, which are very special, Krishna is plunging the residents of Vrindavan into the Ananda Kund, the pool of ecstasy. This is his special gift. And so on this day of Diwali, we can think about how Krishna is unlimitedly merciful to us by displaying in the material world his pure spiritual pastimes, meant to attract you. Everyone likes to hear stories about children, especially if it's their children. Right? Everyone has their collection of photos and video clips of the little children. So Krishna says, all right, I'll show you childhood pastimes that you'll never forget. So on this day of Diwali, we're celebrating Krishna's childhood pastime of being naughty and being bound. So you have to think about this paradox of Krishna being bound. How is it possible? How can you bind a child that has no front or back, no inside or outside? A child that pervades all time and space. How do you get a rope around that kind of child? So you should be meditating on this divine paradox. How was Mother Yashoda able to get a rope around Krishna? And you know how she added rope after rope after rope. And the length was always 2 fingers too short, no matter how many ropes she tied together. And the older gopis were watching her trying to bind Krishna. And they were smiling. They were thinking, this child is special. But Mother Yashoda would not give up. This is the nature of her Vatsalya Prem, her parental love for Krishna. She's thinking, he is my child. He's dependent on me. He's been naughty. I must raise him properly. So she got rope after rope after rope from her house and tied them one after another together. But still, the ropes wouldn't fit around Krishna. Little Krishna. Because Krishna is not a material phenomenon. Do you want to know what Krishna's body is made of? Compressed clouds of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. And there's no difference between Krishna's inside and his outside, his body and his self. He didn't want to be bound by Mother Yashoda at first. Why? He wanted to make more mischief and he wanted to play with his friends. So he wouldn't let her bind him. But Mother Yashoda, she's equally determined. I will bind him. She's worried that little Krishna is so restless, he'll race out into the forest and she had duties to do in the household. Of course, everything she did in her household was meant 100% for Krishna's pleasure. So it's not like she's neglecting Krishna. So Mother Yashoda is trying to bind him. The older gopis are watching. Even the little cowherd boys, they're watching too. Krishna's cowherd friends. Because when Mother Yashoda caught Krishna, he was crying, of course, as you know. Rudantam ahor nature, yugmam rajantam, karam boja yugmena, satanka nature. Rubbing his eyes with his lotus hands, rubbing his lotus eyes. I was explaining this in Canberra Sunday. How Krishna's body was shaking. Muhuswasa kampa chire kanka kanta. The necklaces around his neck were shaking. He's sobbing. He doesn't want to be punished. So he's expressing such fear, especially because Mother Yashoda has a stick in her hand. And Krishna doesn't want to be chastised. And she's chastising him verbally. You monkey lover. You thief. And Krishna's crying. The tears are coming from his eyes, making the black mascara around his eyes run down his face. In Canberra, I was explaining, for a lady, that's considered a disaster when the yes, when the black mascara around the eyes, runs down the face. But for Krishna, no matter what happens to his eye decorations, he looks more beautiful. Whether he's covered with dust from the cow's hooves, or the mascara on his face is running, or there are drops of perspiration on his face, everything just increases Krishna's beauty. So he's crying, and the acharyas say that some of his friends, especially intimate friend like Subal, he's also there. He's crying too. It's a whole drama. Fear itself is afraid of Krishna, yet Krishna is afraid of Mother Yashoda. So as you know, she puts the stick down because she's worried. I don't want to ruin my child's psychology. If he becomes too afraid, that's not good. So now she thinks to bind him to the wooden mortar for grinding spices so that he won't run off here and there. But as I said, Krishna doesn't want to be bound. He's got more playing to do, more mischief to make. So her determination, her stubbornness is of the highest quality. Shuddha Vatsalya Prema, pure parental love of Krishna. She's not going to give up. She's not thinking that her child is inconceivable and immeasurable, aprameya. She's not thinking that. She's thinking, he's my child. He may do things that we don't understand. They're so extraordinary, but he's still my child. Krishna's killing of demons and doing other extraordinary events does not diminish Mother Yashoda's desire to care for him maternally. This is why in Braj Lila, Krishna is careful, you could say, that he does everything in a way that's inconceivable but simultaneously packaged like a human activity. Example, he kills Putana. How? by sucking her breast. He does it in a way that has the element of human sweetness while at the same time being inconceivable. Mother Yashoda is becoming fatigued. The older gopis are smiling. We know this child is special. We're not surprised she can't bind him. Because of her bhakti determination, Krishna allowed himself to be bound. Because he wants to come under the control of his pure devotees, his pure lovers. He wants to demonstrate that his special quality is that he'll come under the control of those devotees whose love is pure. He wants to show that. Iti drik salida bir ananda kunde swagosham namajantamakam. Tadi eshita greshu bhaktir jitatvam. He wants to show the conquest of bhakti, that bhakti can control even him. He wants to show that to whom? He wants to show that to all those who are attached to Krishna's opulence and power. There are different levels of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And of course, that understanding begins with knowing the inconceivable potencies of the Lord. I remember at the BBT, during my BBT days, the artists were turning out painting after painting for Srila Prabhupada's books. Painting after painting of Krishna with the gopis. And so Prabhupada eventually complained, who keeps filling my books with Krishna and the gopis pictures? We want to see how Krishna controls everyone. Unless you understand Namam Ishvaram Satchidanandarupam, as the Damodarastic prayers begin, offering obeisances to the Parameshvara, the Supreme Controller. Without that understanding, you can never understand Krishna's intimate pastimes. That's why there's so much misunderstanding in India about who is Krishna. They haven't heard properly from the right source. So there's so many misconceptions about Krishna. He's the Hindu forest love god. He's a Shudra, he's a this, he's a that. He's a battlefield cheater, midnight romancer. So many misconceptions because they haven't gotten to step one. Namamishwaram Satchidanandarupam. He's the supreme controller of everyone. And he has no material body. He's made of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. I often point out, in the Christian world, their Bible says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That is true. We agree. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. But it's not the end of wisdom. In Damodarastic, you're getting the conclusion of wisdom, which is pure love of Krishna. A love so pure that Krishna wants to come under the control of it. So that's what he's demonstrating in this being bound by Mother Yashoda. He's demonstrating that the pure love of his devotees conquers him. He wants to demonstrate that to two types of devotees. to the devotees who are attached to his majesty, his Vaikuntha opulence and power, and to the devotees who are attached to just loving Krishna for the sake of loving Krishna. In other words, the external devotees and the internal devotees. Both he's showing that I want to come under the control of my devotees' love. There is some qualification for this lesson, however. The acharyas point out that if you want to be qualified to benefit from this lesson, you first have to understand the glories of devotees. Then Krishna will show you how he relishes coming under the control of his devotees. But if you don't know the glories of Krishna, you're not entitled for this lesson. So, Tadiyeshita Geshu Bhakchar Jitatvam. He's showing this lesson to those who are attached to the Vaikuntha opulence, the Narayan opulence. He's showing that at least you appreciate the value of devotees, so therefore I can show you something more. I'm coming under the control of my pure devotees in Braj. He won't show you that, or you won't understand it when you hear it, unless you appreciate devotees, the glories of devotees. That's the first qualification. As we know, the third class devotee, Prakrita Bhakta, Kanishta Adhikari, venerates the deity in the temple but doesn't know how to appreciate devotees. Such a very neophyte devotee is called a Bhakta Bhas, a shadow of a devotee. He or she comes to the temple, offers pranams, bows down, puts a little something in the hundi, and then gone. Of course, anyone who does that is very fortunate, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of bhakti, good fortune. Maybe many of us started like that in our previous birth, and now in this lifetime we're proceeding farther. To go past the neophyte stage means to learn how to relish the glories of devotees. And then to recognize that there are many people suffering without devotional service, how to connect them to Krishna. Puna prematastam shata vritti vande. This prayer, which is an eternally perfect prayer, vibrated by the lips and tongue of Satyavrata Muni to an audience consisting of Narada Muni and one of the four Kumars. The verse ends by saying, I offer with love my obeisances hundreds and hundreds of times, knowing how Krishna relishes coming under the control of his devotees. I'd like to go to a part of the Lila that maybe devotees don't focus on so much, and that is Nanda Maharaj's reaction to Krishna's being bound to the mortar, and then there's the crashing down of the Yamala Arjun trees. Nanda Maharaj and the older cowherd men weren't there exactly at that spot. They were some distance away. They couldn't see what was going on because of so many trees in the way. But what happened? When the trees fell, they heard the sound. And they didn't know what was going on. The sound was like thunder, but there were no clouds or lightning. Immediately, everyone is thinking in Braj, this is inauspicious. A thunderclap, boom! And there are no clouds in the sky, no rain, no lightning. Very inauspicious. Where is Krishna? That's the first thought that comes to their mind. The first, second, third, and last thought, and always the thought that comes to their mind. Where is Krishna? So Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men, the older cowherd men, raced to the site of the sound. Now you might say, where were the ladies? Where was Mother Yashoda? She and Rohini and the elder cowherd ladies had fainted unconscious out of fear for Krishna. So they came later. But the men got there first. And what did they see? They saw these two huge trees, each tree as big as a cowherd man's house, crashed on the ground. And there is little Krishna tied to a wooden mortar for grinding spices, and he's covered with leaves and branches. So the cowherd men are so upset. Oh, look at this. He could have been smashed. They couldn't conclude how this happened. The physical evidence was there. You could see marks on the trees, and you could deduce that the ropes that bound Krishna to the mortar, somehow that Krishna had, they didn't think Krishna had done it, but somehow or other they saw the mortars positioned in such a way that it could have brought down the trees. They saw other, like police detectives, they saw various physical signs that something like that happened, but their mind immediately rejected it. No, the boy couldn't have done it. Maybe it's demigods. Maybe it's some demons. The little cowherd boys were right there, of course. They had seen. And they told the elders. What happened was that Krishna dragged the mortar in between the two trees. And then they jumped. They didn't say that Krishna dragged the trees down because they thought no one will believe us. So they jumped, and then two shining, beautiful beings came out of the trees. So that left their fathers and elders still thinking, how did this happen? How did this happen? As I said, they saw physical symptoms, physical signs on the ground, because actually, Nanda Maharaj was noting, Krishna was still dragging the mortar tied to him. But Nanda Maharaj didn't see that Krishna had dragged the mortar and brought down the trees, but he saw Krishna tied to the mortar, still moving. You could see marks on the trees, marks on the ground. And then the little boys, the little cowherd boys were saying, we saw this. But as I said, the little cowherd boys couldn't say the whole truth because they thought, our parents will never believe us. So they left out they left a gap in their story. But the cowherd men couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe what they saw, the symptoms, the clues, and they couldn't believe the testimonies of the little cowherd boys. Why? They were blinded by Vatsalya Prem, paternal love for Krishna. No matter what our eyes are telling us, we know he couldn't have done it. He's a little boy that we must protect. So Nanda Maharaj, with a smile on his face, proceeded to untie Krishna from the mortar. Why was he smiling? Because he wanted to reassure little Krishna that everything is all right. But internally, what was he thinking? Yashoda, why did she do this? Yes, husbands, you all know how to do that, how to smile on the outside, but internally, why did she do this? I was telling the example in Canberra how one of my brothers, he's a retired medical CEO, and his wife wanted to do a PhD in something. And so she signed on a contract for a PhD program that cost $200,000 US, but she didn't tell my brother. So I heard about it, and I said, what? She signed up for a $200,000 PhD program and didn't, without your permission, and now you're locked in? I said, what did you say to her? What did you say to her? He looked at me and said, I had to choose. Do I want to say something, or do I want to remain married? I decided to remain married. I kept my mouth shut. Yes, it's like that sometimes. Their wives are here, so they won't say anything. So that's Nanda Maharaj in his transcendental, pure Vrindavan way. He was smiling as he untied Krishna, but inside he's thinking, how did Yashoda do this? Krishna was just reciprocating with her, being a bit naughty and running and feeding butter to the monkeys, and he was just reciprocating love. And she tied him to a mortar. He was thinking like that. So Krishna was always inventing various ways to increase the love of the Brijbasis. And he would take orders from them. The Bhagavatam describes how the older gopis would tell Krishna, little Krishna, bring this heavy pot, bring these wooden shoes. Each time they'd ask him, the request would be for something heavier and heavier. So the first things Krishna could bring, he brought his father's wooden shoes on his head. But then other things were too heavy, so Krishna would just touch them. And that's all he could do. Or sometimes he would move his arms against his chest, showing that I'm able to carry this even though I'm not able to carry it. And they would sing songs and say, Krishna, dance to this music. And Krishna would dance like a puppet in their hands to their music. He's conquered, he's controlled by their love. So this Damodarastic prayer is pointing out that Krishna is demonstrating the conquest of bhakti, how he loves to come under the control of bhakti. And so, Puna Prematas Tam Shata Vritti Vande. We offer our obeisances with prem. We aspire to do that. Hundreds and hundreds of times we offer our obeisances. So yes, we should understand the opulences, the inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We shouldn't skip over that. At the same time, we should know that there is the sweetness of Krishna's Braj Lila, in which the residents of Vrindavan never think conclusively that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All they know is Krishna's the most attractive He's the most beautiful son. He's the most beautiful lover. He's the most beautiful friend. That's all they know. Even when they see Krishna do something inconceivable, because he does it in such a sweet, human-like way, their rasa is not disturbed. And they never think Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some of the cowherd men, when they were trying to figure out, how did these trees crash down? They heard the testimony, as I said, from the little cowherd boys. They saw the physical symptoms at the scene. But some of them were thinking, didn't Garga Rishi say this child will be like Narayan? He could have done it. He could have done it. But most of them didn't accept that, and very quickly that thought passed away. Because they're in Vatsalya Prem, they're in parental love of Krishna, in which Krishna is under their care. And Krishna wants it that way. He's the controller of perception. So there's the Vaikuntha vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with Lakshmi Devi, inconceivable opulence, majesty, power. And then there's Braj at the top of the spiritual world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute the taste of Braj. In the lowest, most degraded age, Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to give the highest, the most confidential. So this is another paradox that we can meditate upon. The first paradox is, how do you bind someone who has no front or back, beginning or end, inside or outside? Someone who pervades all time and space, how do you bind such a person? And the other paradox we can meditate for tonight is how in the most age, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, is giving us the taste of the most confidential, personal warehouse of Krishna's pastimes. Any questions? Yes.
You're talking about Mother Yasoda's determination in this asking, that she tried to bind Krishna once she failed, and even after repeated endeavor she kept trying, but she didn't give up, she kept trying. Or Krishna says, he also helped the same.
Mother Yashoda was so determined, even though rope after rope failed to close the gap of 2 fingers, she said, I will be here all day. I don't care. I'm morning to night. I'm going to keep adding on ropes. I'm going to bind my child. That's otherworldly determination based on pure love. Funny you asked that, because when the Yamalarjun trees came crashing down and all the cowherd men raced to the scene and saw Krishna tied to the mortar. And he's still pulling the mortar. They just didn't see him pull the trees down. And Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men were trying to think, how did this happen? What was the cause? Because men are very solution orientated, yes? As the ladies know. They want to get to the bottom of the situation, never mind about the feelings. But right nearby, Nanda Maharaj, and he never noticed, was this big pile of ropes that Mother Yashoda had gathered for trying to bind Krishna. But Nanda Maharaj didn't notice that. He's blinded by Vatsalya Prem, parental love of Krishna. If he saw it, he didn't add up. He didn't factor that in. So pure love of Krishna is the ultimate factor in perceiving reality. So how do we get some kind of determination in bhakti? Mother Yashoda is not an ordinary person. We can become inspired by her pure love for Krishna. You can think of the determination of Srila Prabhupada. You can read in the Lilamrita all that Prabhupada endured to bring bhakti all over the world. Yes. Vaikuntha of the demigods? There are Vaikuntha residences in the material world, but not for the demigods. Krishna has his embassies even in the material world. Demigods are for the heavenly planets. Sometimes they see Krishna there, just like Indra and the others. They see Lord Vamanadev. But you'll read at the beginning of Krishna Lila, beginning of the 10th canto, how even Lord Brahma, he goes to the shore of the ocean of milk to present the message on behalf of the demigods, the devatas, present to Vishnu that there's so much degradation on earth, we need an avatar to appear. Brahma doesn't see, but he feels the message transmission in his heart, and he relays that to the devatas, the demigods. Any other questions?
What I don't understand is when Mother Yashoda died of Krishna, they wrote the name always short.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because Krishna expanded himself or
Krishna is not a material substance. Krishna is not like a suitcase that expands, you know. Anyone have those kind of suitcases? You pull up, and you pull around the zipper in the suitcase, it goes bigger. He's not like that. He's not a physical substance, so you have to get that into your mind, that he's not a physical substance. If he doesn't want the rope around him, he doesn't want it. But whether he wants the rope around him or not, he's not measurable. But he agreed, all right, she loves me so much, she's working so hard, there are beads of perspiration on her forehead, the flowers are falling out of her hair. All right, let the rope go around me. It's not a material procedure. Everything in Krishna Lila is special. Therefore, what do we say at the last Damodarastic prayer? We offer our obeisances to the rope. Anything else? Let's see if the Vaishnavis have any questions. No questions?
I was wondering if you could tell us about the significance of the Diwali with the Sikhs and the Jains.
Deepavali, I've just been talking about Deepavali for 1 hour. That's the real thing. Okay? All right. Yes, Kirtan.
I've heard that when Mother Yashoda was trying to tie the rope, that she took help from
There are always little more details, infinite details.
Was it that he prefers that we work together, or was that just
The main focus is Mother Yashoda. Her bhakti is incomparable. Whether she's assisted by others or not, the spotlight is on her. She's incomparable. The elder gopis of Braj also have parental love of Krishna, Vatsalya Prem, but no one matches Yashoda Mai. Anything else? So today we have focused on the third prayer of Damodarastak, Iti Driksha Lila Bir Ananda Kunde. How Krishna's childhood pastimes have drowned the inhabitants of Braj in pools of liquid ecstasy, the Ananda Kund. May we have just a drop of that. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.